Well, it's a big fish story that affects almost all iwi, a story that began 21 years ago with the signing of the Sealord Fisheries settlement and grew into a multi-million-dollar global industry. It's a story of the Maori fishing business. In part one of our special, reporter Yvonne Tahana asked the men in charge how it's working and what benefit it's given to Māori.
We don't want to lose money, we want to make money.
It's never good for a business to do what we've had to do.
We stay home, we'll just wither.
We're always facing these headwinds in the industry.
These men, Te Ohu Kaimoana's Mature and Peter Douglas, Aotearoa Fisheries Whaimutu Jews and Sealord's Mātānuku Mahuika are the biggest fish in the Kaimoana industry, which was spawned by the full and final settlement of treaty claims in 1992. Māori now control 40% of the industry.
Well, fishing's a tough business. The fish have got minds of their own. They go where they want to, not where you want them to go. There's a competitive industry. The problem for New Zealand fishing is that we are located many, many miles from the markets that we want to compete in.
The sector now works like this. At the top of the food chain, Te Ohu Kaimoana, a commission which acts on behalf of Māori interests. It owns 20% of Aotearoa Fisheries. The country's tribes own the remainder. It's worth $500 million. AFL half owns Sealord with Japanese partner Nippon Suisan. Separately, iwi also receive quota which they can lease out or choose to fish themselves. Te Ohu Kaimoana estimates tribes share in 30 to 35 million from leases every year. The top 5 export markets are located around the Pacific. But one hoki investment in Argentina in 2000, initially promising Sealord stunning returns, turned rotten over 13 years. The company took a $40 million loss, blaming it on economic and political instability. Is losing more than $40 million a disaster?
I mean, we're disappointed in what's happened in Argentina and the effect that it's had on Sealords. But
should heads have rolled over that issue?
Well, whose heads?
The management and board of Sealords?
Well, the way that I would look at this is that the other half of Sealord is owned by Nippon Suisan, or Nisui. And Nisui celebrated 2 years ago its 100-year anniversary. So it's been a company trading for 100 years. When they look back on the last 100 years, they haven't all been stellar years, but for the most part, they've been improving. And if you look at the average, then they've been doing well. Now, we've got to have that sort of outlook. We can't panic when we have a rough year.
In August this year, Sealord sold Yukon.
It was essentially walking away, but doing it through a sale for, like a couple of dollars. And what that meant is that was a way of exiting without there being a bankruptcy. So the business remained on foot. If we knew then what we know now, you wouldn't have done it. But I wouldn't want to see that make us gun shy and not prepared to challenge ourselves or to be ambitious and look to grow.
So has the confidence of Māori shareholders been lost?
Confidence in the decision makers? No, I wouldn't have thought so. If there were 2 made in the same year, I'd expect confidence to be knocked, yeah.
I hope that when they look at it, they'll see that, they'll see that we didn't shy from doing something that was always going to be unpopular.
They had been taking their eye off the ball a little bit, so I think shedding Yukon is going to be extremely important. Sealords is a major company. It has revenues of 500 million a year. They're fishing over 100,000 tonnes per annum, and so they need to look at their core business and make that work.
Between 2005 and 2009, AFL didn't pay a dividend. For 3 years, there were single-figure returns. But this year, the net will be empty. And while independent auditors have praised AFL, they've also said the company isn't making enough returns for iwi. The underlying significance of the settlement was to link us to our fishing heritage. But what's the context of that heritage in 2013?
Aotearoa Fisheries and sealord assets are not about employment for Maori people.
That will shock people. The point that you said about Maori employment, that will shock people. Because
Why?
the deal was sold on employment for Maori,
What
wasn't
deal?
it?
No,
the
no way.
The sealords deal.
No,
Do you
no,
think
no.
that there was not an expectation from Maori that it would provide employment and benefits?
Oh,
Cash being a benefit?
I'm sure there was an expectation, and it is producing employment and cash benefits. But it wasn't about employment. That is something which is going to be generated as a matter of course. When you've got $500 million worth of assets, you expect it to produce some benefits. Do you expect it to produce 10, 12, 15%? If the answer is yes, don't do seafood. We didn't do seafood for employment and cash. We did seafood because it was a property right.
There are other challenges. Te Ohu Kaimoana says there should have been more consultation around snapper limits. Meanwhile, Māori have 4 years longer than others to comply with a law aimed at stopping abuses on foreign charter vessels. It's controversial and might not stay.
You know, I don't know anybody that doesn't abhor the idea of the way conditions have been reported. So we don't oppose legislation being introduced to try and deal with those sorts of conditions for those workers. But we don't like being blamed for them either.
Sealords expected to return profits next year, but an ageing labour force and fleet are immediate concerns. Sealord also wants to keep its debt, which floats between 230 to 250 million, in check. Māori will also follow overseas leads.
There are growth opportunities. They rely, however, on us being stable to start with. They also rely on us taking some risk. In Iceland, the fillet is actually less than 35% of the revenue from that fish, because they use so much more of the fish than we currently do in New Zealand. The skin, I understand, is used for high value, very high value shoes, and so that's a tail to the nose way of looking at a resource.
Te Ohu Kaimoana has to maintain calm in a sea of change.
We still need to be the eyes and ears of iwi in terms of relationships with government and with ministers. So we still need to play a role in all of that, and also eyes and ears in the fisheries sector to ensure that when issues come up, there is a voice for Māori.
There's still a drive for Sealord to be a world leader.
It's good for Māori people to see the things that they're doing well. And you want to think that when your time's up, because it will be at some point, that you've left something which is strong and durable, and that those that follow you can continue to build upon.
None of the big four are fishermen, but for Whaimutu Jews, a Ngāti Porou seafood delicacy serves as an inspiration.
When the kehe is fat, it's got a pito. When the kehe is fat, the pito protrudes. It's a bit like us humans in that regard. So you can tell you can tell the good condition. That's what we want. We need to get our companies like that, like the kehe with the pito protruding, because then you know that it's in really good condition.